Hey, what's up, everybody? How have you been? It's been a long time since I last recorded a video, so I've been feeling an itch to get back to it. A lot of you guys have been requesting that I read more from the book A History of the Yoruba People, and so that's what I'm going to do today. So I'm no longer in Africa. I'm no longer in Nigeria. I moved back with my family back to Los Angeles. So it's been a transition period. So that's part of the reason why that I've been reading. But I want to be consistent and want to keep it up and share the knowledge that I'm learning about the great Yoruba people of West Africa. And today I'm actually going to read from, like I said, A History of the Yoruba People by Dr. S. Adebanji Akintoye, great Yoruba scholar. I think he's based in Pennsylvania now. And last time I read from Beginnings. And so today I'm going to read a little bit from chapter 2, The Development of Early Yoruba Society. Like I said, all this information is extremely interesting. It's really fascinating when you think about how far back the history of African people goes into time. You know, far back probably than we'll ever know. So hopefully, maybe I can inspire a new era of some Black Indiana Joneses. You know, people who are into archaeology. Finding lost civilizations, artifacts that can help us piece together more of our history, so that we can develop a clear picture of, you know, our true origins of civilization. So yeah, without further ado, I'll get back to it. I'm going to read chapter 2, The Development of Early Yoruba Society, once again, from A History of the Yoruba People by S. Adebanji Akintoye. It's available through Amalian Publishing. You can buy it on Amazon. If you're into history, African history, Yoruba history, Nigerian history, I definitely recommend it. So, without further ado, let's get it. Peace. During the roughly 15 centuries following the 4th century BC, the coming of the knowledge of the production and use of iron transformed the culture of the Yoruba and stimulated great cultural advances in their small settlements in the Ilu setting. According to archaeological evidence, the knowledge of iron came to the area known now as Nigeria as early as 700 BC at Taruga in central Nigeria, about 55 miles or 80 kilometers southeast of Abuja. Some remains of iron smelting activities have been dated to between 700 and 500 BC. How soon after this knowledge of iron reached Yoruba land is not known. Archaeological evidence has yielded dates in the 2nd century AD, but it is almost certain that its beginning in Yoruba land belongs to considerably earlier dates. The history of the beginning of the Iron Age in Africa, south of the Sahara, is, in general, markedly different from its history north of the Sahara, in the Middle East and in the Mediterranean world. In these places, people first learnt to produce copper and its bronze alloy before they came to now know to produce iron. That is, there was a copper/bronze age, which followed the Stone Age, and which lasted for centuries before the Iron Age. In Africa, south of the Sahara, on the other hand, the Stone Age was followed directly by the Iron Age, while the use of copper and bronze came later. For this reason, many archaeologists and other scholars insist that the knowledge of iron production must have come to sub-Saharan Africa from the Mediterranean world, either through Carthage in modern Tunisia, or through Meroe in modern Sudan, or from the Red Sea through Axum in modern Ethiopia. Their principal argument is that knowledge of metals through copper and bronze is a precondition for the knowledge of iron, and that peoples who had not had any knowledge of production of copper and bronze could not possibly have discovered how to produce iron. Other archaeologists and scholars, however, disagree with these views. They point out that the knowledge of iron could have arrived in West Africa through the process of pottery production. The type of rock clay from which iron is smelted, called egun or eguru in Yoruba, is the same type of clay for making pots. The firing of pots requires knowledge of production and management of high heat fires. In the application of such intense heats to clay pottery, it is possible that raw iron, called iron bloom, could have formed from time to time and remained unrecognized for a long time, until, by and by, people recognized this nature and began to use it. It is significant that in some parts of West Africa, the iron smelter was usually the husband of the woman potter. Moreover, the earliest date known for the evidence of iron production in West Africa, about 700 BC, is considerably earlier than the beginning, about 500 BC, of iron at Meroe, the source from which West Africa is most generally supposed to have received the knowledge of iron production. In summary, the argument here is that knowledge of metallurgy through copper and bronze need not necessarily be a precondition for the discovery of iron, and that people in sub-Saharan Africa seem to have discovered iron as a byproduct of pot production. The implication is that Yoruba women potters were probably the first producers and discoverers of raw iron in Yoruba land. The available evidence suggests that in the centuries after 500 BC, then, the knowledge of iron was spreading gradually in West Africa. In Yoruba land, evidence of ancient iron works has been found in a few places. One at Ife Jumu in northeastern Yoruba land has been dated to about 160 AD. Another site has been found near an abandoned town near Moniya in Ibadan in the Yoruba Midlands. Other places famous among Yoruba people as places of iron production as Isundunri or Ilorin, Ife in central Yoruba land, and Idofin in the northeast. The usual remains of ancient iron production are furnaces, kilns, and heaps of iron slag. Iron smelting was a very hazardous occupation, involving the use of dangerously high heats. Partly for this reason, no doubt, Yoruba people always located iron smelting centers at a considerable distance from human habitation, at a place in the forest where the iron-bearing type of rock clay was available. The smelting equipment consisted of the furnaces for producing the high heat, and the kilns for holding the supply of clay over the heat. The smelting process involved heating the clay until the iron bloom formed and was separated from the rest of the slag. This was cooled and then sold as iron ingots to blacksmiths who would use it to fabricate tools. Iron blades for machetes, hoes, knives, axes, arrows, spears, as well as for household utensils. Early Yoruba people consigned iron smelting and the fabrication and use of iron tools to the patronage of one of their most senior deities, the god later known as Ogun, who was from earlier times worshipped as a god of all working folks, probably in these earlier times with the name Alaka Ayi, meaning roughly owner or wielder of the arms of the working people of the world. The iron smelting center was a shrine of this deity, with all the adornment and paraphernalia of a shrine, and nobody who was not an initiate was allowed to come near it. The blacksmith's workshop was located closer to the village and sometimes inside the village, and the villagers could come there to buy or repair their tools. But it too was a shrine, and like the smelting center, was a place of frequent sacrifices to the patron god Ogun. Even people who only used iron tools in their daily occupations, farmers, hunters, woodworkers, sculptors, and so on, were supposed to offer sacrifices to Ogun. So highly did the Yoruba people esteem iron as a fact in their lives. After the discovery of crop and animal domestication, that is agriculture, the discovery of iron was the greatest step taken by early humans in West Africa in the path of civilization. As material for tools, iron commands enormous superiority over stone. Iron-bearing clays are not as commonly available as stone, but they are sufficiently available in many places. Iron is much harder than stone. Unlike stone, it can be molded or beaten into various shapes, and iron tools can, as desired, be made very sharp. The knowledge of iron came in a particularly fortunate era in Yoruba history, coinciding as it did with the growth of the Ilu pattern of settlement. In practically all parts of Yoruba land, the traditions, folklore, and legends agree that for each settlement, greatly increased security and peace was a major benefit of living in an Ilu. By and large, an Ilu was a haven of security, peace, and stability for its villages. Constantly, the Ilu setting was especially suited and ready to derive great advantages from iron when it was discovered. In Yoruba land, the immediate impact of iron was the improvement of farming tools and methods. Iron tools gradually took the place of tools made of stone, bone, and wood. The iron bladed cutlass or machete for cutting vegetation, and the iron bladed hoe for tilling and digging. Fabricated, we may suppose, only crudely at first, improved over time, making it possible for each farmer to clear and cultivate larger farms than farmers of earlier times who had used stone tools. The areas opened up as farmlands pushed the primeval forest farther and farther back. Probably quite early, Yoruba farmers learnt from experience the wisdom of leaving every piece of farmland fallow periodically. That knowledge became an important asset for the management of soil fertility. As production increased, farmers evolved methods of storing and protecting harvested crops. Detailed information from traditions and yam festivals abound all over Yoruba land about the handling of yam tubers, the most important food crop. The seasonal task of tying harvested yam tubers in rows on vertically standing stakes is celebrated with rituals and sacrifices in some parts of Yoruba land. So yeah, that was just a small taste of the second chapter of the history of the Yoruba people. The name of that chapter is The Development of Early Yoruba Society. Um, so yeah, you can see just within those couple of pages, they talked a lot about iron working, how it was so central to survival for the Yoruba people, for the early Yoruba people. You needed iron to hunt, fish, clear land, protect yourself, and that is why the blacksmith, the iron worker, was so revered, and that's how the deity Ogun became such a central figure in Yoruba history and religion. Um, the deity came to be known as Ogun. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that. If you want to read more, you should probably pick up the book. I will definitely continue to read short passages for your enjoyment, but I think it's best to go pick up this book, History of the Yoruba People by Dr. S. Adabanji Akintoye. You can buy it on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, etc. Or you can go to your local public library. They probably got it there, and that's free. That's where I found it first. So yeah, hope you enjoy. Subscribe, like, share, and I will definitely continue to make videos on a more consistent basis. So peace out, y'all. Talk to you later.